Well, check it out, y'all. We got what you need. We're all living in apartments, condos, vans. Well, dude, even you can have a studio in a box. Yes, we can help you with that right here at Blind Knowledge. We work on your budget, and we figure out your measurements. We'll get you the best sound for the best price. Let me know, 877-237-1143 or at blindknowledge.com. Yep.
Spectres all around me, living in stark, blazing the dark. One by one, pictures gather round me. Where those moonflowers used to lost no more. Spectres gather round here, living in stark, blazing the dark. Night by night, stare into the black where moonflowers used to grow.
Do you struggle with putting yourself first? Are you tired of feeling burnt out and overwhelmed from constantly putting the needs of others before your own? I have created a sacred space that will be available once a week for 10 weeks to learn, dive deep, and create your boundaries to boost your confidence and self-worthiness. Go to www.krista-luna.com and sign up for the Master Your Boundaries course starting in September 2023. And use the code PARANORMAL to get 30% off today on www.crsta-luna.com.
Where's your ring light?
You know what?
Welcome. Oh,
Sorry. Do you want me to put on a ring light to get better lighting on our faces?
if you want, that's up to you.
Well, Jerry, we want to look as pretty as humanly possible for you.
Okay, now I'm leaving that part in the beginning. Welcome back to Paranormal the New Normal. I haven't said that in a month, folks, as many of you watchers know, and I miss saying it more than anything. So happy to be back finally. So happy to be back in the routine of doing what I love, because as one of my friends said, podcasting is like breathing to me, and that is the truest statement in the world. But welcome back. And one episode I have to start you off on. For any newcomers, I am your host, Jeremy, of course, trying to make the world seem a little more normal, but does it ever happen? Nah. It ain't supposed to happen, and it ain't going to happen. Not today, at least. So I'm here with a guest that's actually their job, is to try to make the world a little more normal every day almost. So let me introduce them. I am joined by another podcast called The Modern Day Ed Lorraine Warren, which I'm going to stick with that because I like it. The Paranelsons. Mark and Barbara, I'm glad to have you. How you doing tonight?
Hey, Jeremy.
We're doing great, Jeremy.
Excited to be here. Thanks for having us. This sounded like a fun interview, and I'm glad you brought us on.
Oh, to turn down a team of paranormal investigators, never. To turn down a married team, oh God, never. That's sacrilegious in the paranormal podcasting world. That's sacrilegious right there. But I am happy to have you guys on, and we're going to get into a lot of things tonight, I already know. But the first question, as always, just to get an opening glance here, what got you into the paranormal? And I'll let whichever one of you wants to start.
Shall I? Okay. The paranormal found me. I was a little kid. It was after my dad had passed. And actually, he was killed in a holdup when I was 11. And so I'm out raking leaves, and I'm trying to be a normal kid in spite of what happened. And I turn around, and my dad is standing there, and I'm like, okay, I'm losing my mind. And so it was a riveting experience, one I'll never forget. He smiled. He told me, I'm okay, and you will be too. And then he just went away. He disappeared. Went away is as good a word as anything else I can say. And it shocked me. I thought I was losing my little 11-year-old brain. And then I saw him again at school. And so I told him at that point, please go away. I don't know what to do with you. I don't know how to deal with you, is better said. That was my first shot.
Oof. Damn. Okay, guys, I wasn't lying. I said we're going to open. I thought this one's going to be one for the books, and that's the way to open a podcast. My God. Well, I mean, first things first, of course, sorry for lost your father. I mean, especially at that age. I mean, that's just, and the circumstances and everything, that's horrible. I mean, I lost mine when he was in his 50s, which say enough, but God, yours tops that by a mile. So yeah. Oh wow. So Barb, when did you come into all this?
So I experienced the paranormal a lot younger. I was maybe 5 or 6 years old, and I woke up, in the middle of the night. It was like 3 or 4 in the morning, and I looked up and I saw this. It was like a misty figure that was hovering in my doorway. At the time, I was sharing a room with my sister. She was asleep. She had no idea what was going on. And I wasn't afraid of it. I was kind of drawn to it. And I think it was trying to communicate to me. And I didn't hide under my covers. I didn't wake everybody up. I just kind of went with it and tried to communicate. And then it, faded away. But it left a lasting impression on me. And I continued in delving into paranormal things.
Wow. I mean, that's two good experiences to get you into. That's for sure. I mean, and the fact you didn't freak out. I mean, me at that age, I would have been running like a girl in my parents' room, like full Scooby Doo ghost. But I mean, God, I didn't even like horror movies until recently because I just not that kind of person. But I get frightened easily until I started getting into paranormal a little more. But wow. So did the paranormal bring you guys together, or did you discover you both had ties to it afterwards?
No, we found each other in college. We were both, we went to Cal State Northridge in the Los Angeles area, and we were both took an acting class, and then the girl I was with wanted to be in the scene with the guy she was with, so we were kind of the leftovers. And then 40 years later, here we still are. Good leftovers, the best.
Well, it worked out in the end, apparently. So if it works, it works. What can you say about that? But so when did you discover that each other had paranormal abilities of your own in a way?
Well, do you want to go for? I can.
Yeah, I mean, my older sister was involved with psychics and would go see this one psychic, Kenny Kingston, who was the personal psychic of Marilyn Monroe. And so he would have these gatherings, really fun, really, he was he ran spiritualist. Yeah. And so he'd have a gathering of psychics, and you'd pay for a reading, and you'd go through singing and uplifting the energy. And so my sister invited me to that, and I loved it. Mm-hmm. And so I asked Mark if he wanted to come too. And so he came along with me.
And we watched Kenny do his thing. And then there's at one point during the service, it was a spiritualist service. He comes out and people would hold up personal objects, effects. We were actually married at the time, and I was holding up my wedding band. And he grabbed, and he said, basically it's called psychometry. You grab the ring or you grab an object and you can read it if you're a psychic medium, or if you're just simply sensitive to that sense of touch and discernment. He did. He told us, so you guys are going to be married a long time. You're going to move in many different places, live around the world.
We've been together in other
before.
Lives. Yeah.
And Barbara and I have moved and lived in several places around the country. And we, like he predicted, we're together after nearly 40 years.
He said that we had a bond that was unbreakable. And we've actually had an experience that really proved that.
Tested it. Yeah. Very well.
Well, I mean, the fates do like to test people. That's for damn sure. But I mean, it's just, and I believe in fate. I was going to say it anyway before I even thought of that, but I believe in fate. I always have. And if people are fated to be together, that's just the way it is. Like, I mean, and especially in the paranormal world, things tend to work out a little faster than usual because it's just everybody's spirited towards each other in that way. Mm-hmm. So you're a medium, Mark.
Yes.
So when did you truly begin to hone those abilities, like learn how to master them?
It happened when I was in my mid-30s, something like that. Right. I was out taking a walk. I've worked throughout my career in advertising, worked as a writer, creative director kind of person. and I'm stressed out, and I felt like taking a walk. And as I'm walking, I hear in my head, or I'm thinking to myself, gosh, I wish my dad could have met Barbara. We had just bought a new home. We were having the life. We had a daughter, a new home. We'd moved. I was feeling a little stressed, but proud of it. And then in my head, I heard, I have met them. I have seen them. And so my first impression is, oh, so this is the onset of a psychosis. I'm developing a split personality, just like that. And then, so I asked this voice in my head, if you have met them, tell me something I don't know. I need to validate that you were in this spirit also to identify itself as my dad. So if you really are my dad, and there's thunder as we speak, where we may be getting.
There's a thunderstorm coming.
So the voice of God.
Atmosphere. It's atmosphere.
If we lose power, it's because of what's coming. So I asked this voice, all right, tell me something. And I heard in my head, your brother Glenn is surrounded by green ivy and white walls. And it's like, that doesn't make sense. I have a brother, Glenn. So I called my mom up, who lived near Glenn, and asked, did anything happen to Glenn? I had a dream that Glenn was surrounded by green ivy and white walls. And she's like, oh, that's very funny. He just got a job at a place called the Green Ivy, and it, in fact, has white walls. And so, all right, that was an instant validation for something I'd heard, and I wanted to learn more. I started to take more walks. I got more validations. And then I thought, all right, I need to see it. Is this just for family? Am I just is this temporary? I went to a psychic bookstore. I asked people if I could read. A woman who owned it said yes. If I could read her, she let me. Turned out she said that was very good. Can you start working for us? And I did, just like that. I mean, I would work weekends. I kept my day job, so to speak. And it was a good experience. Wonderful.
It's kind of funny, actually, too, that you're in advertising, and I mean, you might have been reading the customer's minds without even realizing it.
That'll be good. Yeah, I should have thought of that. Actually, somebody told me. I don't care who did, but there you go.
I mean, yeah, it's just, I thought that's funny. But wow, I mean, that's one way to get it. I mean, do you ever wish it happened a little bit sooner in your life, like when you're in your 20s or maybe teens even?
It would have been probably great, but you know what, too?
You weren't ready for it.
Yeah, I don't think I was ready for it. Yeah. I was trying to focus on, starting my life. I mean, in hindsight, if I had realized, bang, I could hear it, I could do this, it might have changed our relationship. But one thing I will be very thankful for is it was a scary moment for me, was finally having to tell Barbara, I think I'm seeing and hearing dead people. And so it's kind of like your wife doesn't want you to, tell you something that could upset the apple cart, particularly like that. But Barbara took it in stride. She handled it. And I told her, I'm not going to give up what I do. I'm not going to endanger our livelihood or our lives, but I have to pursue this. And she was entirely supportive.
Well, I mean, that's the best you could hope for, because
it is.
A lot of people wouldn't be. I mean, especially, I mean, trying to put together when all this was in like years in my head, but I can't really and don't want to age you at the same time. So I don't want to but I mean, yeah, in a time, I'm guessing, where it wasn't really like as openly accepted as it is today. Like,
not even close. I mean, the only guy that was out there doing something like this in the media that I saw was John Edward.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of other psychic mediums that I didn't really relate to. I wasn't like them. I was a family guy. I was someone that you'd meet at Home Depot buying a bag of nails. It's kind of more. I'm the neighbor that takes care of his own laundry or his own lawn and all of that.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, back then, a lot of them were more flashy and just trying to make money off it, and a lot of them weren't even real mediums. I mean, John Edwards, still debatable whether he actually had power or not. I mean, or if it was all staged. I mean, well, South Park did him bad enough. I don't need to insult him anymore. But so. And from what I've heard, Barb, you're good with paranormal equipment, all the different ghost hunting equipment, basically.
Yeah, I take a more scientific approach, although I am intuitive as well.
She is.
But I really liked the fact that I can, with my instruments, I can validate everything that Mark is picking up. And it actually enhances how we investigate, because I would go ahead of him and pick up things and say, Mark, I think there's something in this room. Maybe we should go over here. So the equipment is just a means of recording, validating, verifying, filming, getting photographs, voice phenomenon. So that's really the part that I'm really interested in.
Which Metri, I mean, that's perfect. You get the science, and you get. I mean, it's kind of like the Mulder and Scully aspect of it all.
Oh yeah,
in a way.
Very much so.
yeah.
Actually, I like that. I like that better than the Warren. Screw that. It's Mulder and Scully now.
Well, we're the opposite, because Mark's the associate and I'm the technician. So
Yeah.
we're kind of
Well, I'd like if you were to come,
yeah.
and just want to say this, we have nothing but respect for the legacy of Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Of course.
We're not connected to them in any way. We are simply admirers. But we weren't the only ones to notice that we worked as a couple with similar attributes, although they were swapped. And so we think the world of them, and we're very thankful for the fact that they helped open doors.
Oh, yeah.
They did. And I mean, getting the actors that got to play them, they did a good job of bringing them back into the limelight of Hollywood.
Yes, they did.
A lot of people, until those movies started coming out, didn't know their names even.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to be into the paranormal to know their names to begin with before that. So it's great. I mean, they definitely deserve the respect. They opened this field up for so many people. It's just pioneers.
It's true.
But that's why I like the Mulder and Scully thing better anyway, because it matches up perfectly.
Who's who? Yeah, there you go. They're both very sharp in their own way, and that was a great show.
And and Scully was good with the science side, and Mulder was the believer. Because he had experience. So there you go, works. But so let's hear about some of your investigations, because I mean, all right, this is the way. As everybody knows, I usually ask what experiences people have as a second question on this show, but with investigators, that's just a very open-ended question that can get answered 5,000 different ways. So, what experience sticks in your memory the hardest? That's the way I'm going to ask it. What experience sticks in your memory the hardest, like you'll never forget it to the day you die?
Black Dahlia investigation.
Yeah.
Barbara and I had an opportunity. The Black Dahlia is a terrible, notorious murder that took place in 1947 in the Los Angeles area. It is currently unsolved, although many people believe they know who the perpetrator was. What had happened was this young actress was found drained of her blood in a field and cut in half and left in just a terribly demeaning and provocative way. So since then, a lot of people have had theories about what happened to her. And so we were asked by a production company, which will remain unnamed at this point, to go and investigate a home they said they might have something to do with the Black Dahlia. And we didn't know it until we got there. We didn't know the address. But Barbara and I walked up, and as I'm walking towards it's a very well-known location on Franklin Boulevard in east side of Hollywood. The Jaws House. There's a number of names for it. But anyway, we walk up, and as I'm walking up, I see people in spirit. I see them like I first described seeing my dad. I saw this guy that appeared to be in period clothing from the 1940s. Little skinny guy, little mustache. And I'm looking at him, and it's almost like it feels like I'm connecting with him rapidly. And I realize, you're the killer, and you're a doctor, and okay, you lived in the house. And I'm walking up with the producer of this production company for the production company, and I say, before we go any further, if a doctor lived in this house at the time of the murder, he did it. And she was like, well, that just kind of that's it. They had suspicions, but they weren't, and they didn't tell me anything, and I didn't know enough I couldn't have really looked into it. But I see this guy, and it's like, he was like, not happy that we were there. And then Barbara had her own experiences inside, but we did walkthroughs of the house twice.
Right.
And Barbara had her own feelings.
That was the first place, and Mark and I had been to several other investigations prior to this, but it was the first environment that I actually had vertigo. And it was myself, and the producer was behind me. She was also a woman. We walked past down this hallway because the house was basically, it was like an O. So there was an atrium in the center of the house, and it was surrounded by hallways that had the rooms. And we walked past this, it was a bathroom, and we walked past it, and something came over me, and I just had this vertigo. I had to like hold myself up with the wall, and I walked past it, and then I looked at the producer, and she did the same thing. She was like gonna fall over, and I go, "Did you feel that?" And she goes, "What was that?" I have no idea. It was just this dizziness. You felt this vertigo. And it turns out that that was the bathroom where they had actually done some of the murdering.
Or
So
the
it had been remodeled, but it was the environment that some of the actual torture and whatever else was going on.
the section, so to speak.
Yeah.
See, I love that because I looked into the Black Dahlia murder a lot after that movie came out in the early 2000s about it. Like I started looking into it and listening to YouTube shows about it. It's it is fascinating, and the doctor was always who I actually thought did it too. But that was always the most likely suspect when they talked about it. But that's amazing that they actually do that and they don't even like tell you what it is. So it's like, yes, come out here, check us out. And
What do you get here? Yeah,
it's one of the most famous murder cases ever. Like, and that's the one they asked you to come investigate. That's amazing. That truly is amazing.
Well, and that wasn't the only person he murdered in the house. There were several other, and Mark picked up that there were several other women buried in the house that are still there.
My impression was that he would kill them, but there was an extensive underground around the house basement.
Yeah.
It was actually unfinished dirt underneath. And he would kill them, leave them there till things cooled off, take the bodies out, and then discard them later. And what I heard from him is I heard this doctor saying, "I'm just taking out the trash." And it's like, what a horrible monster. What's interesting too is his son, the doctor's son, wrote a book called The Black Dahlia Avenger, and then did a follow-up to that. And he believed that his father,
we went to his book signing, and it was at the same time we were doing the investigation, and we said, we're the ones in doing the investigation, and we wanted to meet you because we wanted to get really what you think happened. And so we told him what we picked up, about not just Elizabeth Short, but several other women. He said the same thing. He said, "I think he killed many." And he said, "My father did do it." He admitted it.
And this guy ended up becoming a leading detective for, I believe it's the Los Angeles Police Department.
Yeah.
The other thing too, when we went to see him speak, we made a point of like not waiting for him to speak and to spill his beans. We went up right before he talked and said, "Before you start, revealing all of this, this is what I got. This is who Barbara and I are. And we were just at the house. This is what we knew." And it turns out he lived in that house when he was a kid, and that at the time of the murder, he thinks his father sent his mom and his sister away to another home they had in Las Vegas. So or Palm Springs, my mistake. Thank you. And so they can put the time frame together that would have happened. This guy the doctor ended up divorcing his wife, and so he didn't feel obligated to be part of that, protect his father at all. Yeah. And then oddly enough, his mother, after his father passed, gave him a box of photographs.
This was a different mother.
Oh, different? No,
his wife. Because what happened after he never got convicted, but they were getting close to convicting him. He left a lot of the evidence by the body. He left a bag that he had the concrete in. He left the bag right by the body. They had all this evidence. And the son he was investigating these murders, and he went to the LAPD to pick up the evidence box.
This is years afterwards.
This is years after, and surprisingly, there was nothing in it. Somebody had discarded all the evidence. So, and he had like a 95% solve rate. I mean, he was not, he solved most of his cases.
One other thing interesting about this is that the doctor, I mean, we believe he did kill quite a few people. The mother, or one of the mothers, gave the detective this box of photos. One of them included a photo they believed to be Elizabeth Short. In addition, there was a photo of one of this detective's early girlfriends.
Yeah.
And they were like not fully clothed. Oh, but I also was going to tell you the reason why the doctor had unusual access to women like this is that he was the head of women's health in services in Los Angeles. And what that means is that women who wanted an abortion were having, they had, hookers, prostitutes, women who were doing the sex trade. They came to him with various diseases. And so he was in contact with women who might be considered disposable. Right. That is a heinous thing to say. But in that context, he would think no one's going to miss them.
Yeah, I was going to say, not easily miss people, like the people that are.
Well, and his attitude of, I'm just taking out the trash. That's how he felt.
And
I mean, it's a serial killer motive, like same as Gacy or Dahmer, just like them. It's a serial killer motive that they are not doing anything wrong, even though they're doing the most horrendous thing you could do in the world. Like, literally.
And the other thing, too, is that this doctor knew powerful men in Los Angeles. Right. Many of them would find that their female companions were pregnant in an untimely way. Mm-hmm. So he would take the goods on people. Yeah. He could arrange abortions, arrange for people to go away because of his connections and his position.
Exactly. I believe I remember in some of the documentaries I watched, they talked about like how he would have. It's funny because it's very similar to the whole Jack the Ripper theory that it was the royal doctor that did it all because he had the connections to get away with it. Like mm-hmm. It's very similar. I never thought of that even until like right now, but that is very similar. But
it's perfect sense. Makes perfect sense.
But Mark also picked up his accomplice because he had another. There was another guy there who they would do this together. He had someone help him, and he got the name. He actually got the name of the accomplice.
I heard this weird. He called himself the Baron.
The Baron.
It's like, who calls themselves the Baron? Well, apparently assistants to serial killers on occasion, and so.
But he wasn't a real Baron.
He wasn't. He was fake. Yeah. European aristocracy. He was fake, and and his son, the detective, validated that. So I found that interesting because it's like some of the stuff I hear. It's like, hope it's true. This is what I'm hearing. I'll throw it out there. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, the Baron. Yeah, that's only a name for serial killers, a Looney Tune villain, and possibly some comic book villains as well. But,
yes, sir.
And they usually don't actually have baronship anywhere. They give themselves the name. But
the Baron too, which is
the Baron.
Yeah. So the other question I usually like to ask investigators about their investigations: what was the case that made you pretty much? Because pretty much everybody has one. I always find out which one made you like tear up from happiness just because you're able to help this spirit like so much.
Oh wow!
Maybe
probably the Queen Mary one.
What about Sharon Tate with the?
Oh yeah.
Did I just hear Sharon Tate? Oh, I am full of beers now.
That was a very, very emotional one.
Yeah, it was.
Because I was a kid at the time, but I remember how much that murder, the Tate and the LaBianca murders, just put the whole city of Los Angeles at a standstill. Mm-hmm. I remember that as a kid. It's like it was so horrific what happened. Nobody could believe it, and so it always kind of stuck with me. And when we had that opportunity to go to the David Oman house, which was down the street from the actual Tate property, which I think they were renting at the time. They didn't own it. They were renting it.
Yeah.
Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate, and she was like 8 or 9 months pregnant at the time. And the night of the murders, she had invited over her friends.
There's 4 of them.
Yeah. Abigail Folger, Wankowski.
Yes.
J.C.
Sebring. There was Tate and the others. And then someone she wasn't even aware of, like visiting the housekeeper on the property, young man, Stephen Parent. Wojciech
Wykowski,
I think.
Was
Forgive
the
me
boyfriend. And so we were invited to come to the house, which was the property, which was down the street. And there was all this activity going on in that house from the people, the spirits that were still kind of hanging out. And, Mark and I were asked to come and investigate, see what we could pick up. And Mark, you really connected with Sharon.
Well, two things. David has his house tricked out with a lot of details from the 60s.
Right.
He likes, and David was very generous to allow us to come and visit.
Yes.
It was very kind of him, and he opened his house up and made it available to us. So his house does have a strong 60s vibe. The other thing, too, is that on the day before Barbara and I were invited up for a shoot with a production team, I was working in Culver City. Friends said, hey, and I was new on the job in ad biz. Hey, you want to go for a walk? Where? It's like, I don't know, Culver City. He says, let's walk across the street at Holy Cross Cemetery. It's like, it's a funny place for a walk, but okay. And I had not told him that day, I need to leave at 5:00 today, which is not a little unusual in the ad biz. I need to get out. I need to be somewhere in Beverly Hills at a certain point. And so we're walking around and it's like, I'm getting very conscious of the time. We got to get out of here, man. I got to get back. I got to finish stuff. I got to go. What are you doing? It's like, well, I'm going to go to investigate the Sharon Tate murders, a paranormal investigation. Yeah. And he basically goes, she's buried right over there. So what are the chances of me not knowing where I was? I wasn't planning on going anywhere. Wasn't planning to go into the cemetery. And then I end up, 20 feet away from her when I say her name. We walk over and there is her grave with her son next to her. And so it's just like, wow, you're manipulating me to be here. There's no way I could have done this. There's no way. I mean, it's impossible. So went and did the investigation that night. What she told me, what I heard distinctly from J.C. Sebring. J.C. was one of the killers and was arguably her best friend. And I heard J.C. Sebring say, we had big plans. On tape, they heard me say I had big plans. Then they heard a second voice on tape saying I had big plans. So that was an electronic voice phenomenon.
Because he at that time he kind of got cut off right as his star was rising. He was doing all the haircuts for all the celebrities, Steve McQueen, and his star was rising, and so he just got cut down right when that was happening. It was so sad. He was a young guy.
Yeah.
The thing
people are actually familiar with that case more than ever now because of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, like bringing it back to limelight.
Can I just add the thing that made us tear up, though? I'm sorry, it's a long time getting to your
good.
Is that I heard her say, well, why did you bring us? I asked her, why did you want us here? Right. And she said, we wanted people to know, not to think of us only for the last moments of her life. And we are beautiful again.
Right.
That
was the message. Again. And when Mark was filming that, I was off camera and I was watching the little monitor. And the minute he said that we're beautiful again, everybody was like crying. They were tearing up and crying because it was such a beautiful message. And it's like, I don't want to be remembered all,
just for the last moments of my life.
I want to be remembered, we're beautiful now. So I thought that was, I'm getting all chilled now.
And it's so fair. It's like this young woman had such a great, Abigail Folger. I mean, they all had, lives to live. and that yet all we ever think of them is though they were victims of the monster Charles Manson.
Yep. Who,
And so,
ironically, as far as we can prove, never killed anybody himself. But
no, but he was certainly the ringmaster.
yeah, I have some podcast friends who like to argue that he was a CIA plant, but I don't.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
I don't know how I feel about that. I think he was just a madman he was just a musician who couldn't get what he wanted, but was very good at influence people to do what he wants.
Very good.
I agree with that.
Good.
I agree. He was a master at it.
He was a horrible musician, but I mean, yeah, he was a master manipulating people. I mean, I've watched a lot of shows about him, movies about him too, documentaries about him. He's just, I mean, he literally killed the swinging 60s. He literally killed it, like by having that done that night. Like 1969, he killed. He made it go to the next decade, and everything changed. So he's single-handedly responsible for that for the most part.
Yeah, it's true because I remember the whole atmosphere at that time just switched because of those events.
We were little kids at the time, but you could be conscious of. Yeah. Now we have to go out and be careful. Now we can't be carefree and free love isn't love all the time. There may be a madman behind that smiling face who wants to go hang out with you.
Yeah, especially if you're a beach boy. But it's yeah, I mean, it's sad. It started but it also, I mean, it was a good thing in a way, I guess, kind of because it made America more aware that there is danger lurking when things like this have happened before that, but it just wasn't widespread news across the country or anything. It was just local news, and people would forget about it a couple years later because life goes on, and it wasn't put in front of their faces on television and all that. I mean, I think the first recorded serial killer in America was like in the 1850s or 60s, technically.
Yeah. There was the guy connected to the White City in Chicago.
The Devil in the White City.
The Devil in the White City.
Yeah. I mean, yep. And I believe there was one that was down south somewhere that was one of the first recorded serial killers of children in the 1800s.
There was actually
there was a couple. There was a couple in
I can't remember, Savannah.
Charleston.
Might have been Charleston.
Yeah.
This woman, husband and wife team, owned an inn that we actually went to. And their game was to invite lonely travelers in, and then they would feed them, drug them, and then they set up a bedroom that would have a false floor that would fall. It would fold.
Or the bed would
drop.
Up.
The bed would drop.
Yeah, and then they would go down.
The husband would be waiting for them and kill the person as he hit the floor drugged.
And then they would rob them.
And then say he left. Yeah. The guy isn't here anymore. And so talk about a horrible and vindictive woman or a possessed woman to the very end. I don't have her name, but it's a pretty...
We went to the prison where they ended up. It's in Charleston, and
what she did, she's they had a law at the time. You can't hang a married woman. You can't, and so you can't hang a woman who's been married.
So they hung the husband first.
So now you're a widow.
Now she's a widow.
Gotcha.
I love the sarcastic humor, especially that Graham. I love it. I freaking love it.
What made it even worse, though, is that she's waiting to be killed. She says, "Does anyone have a message for the devil? Because I'm about to go see him." And then she jumped off the platform rather than wait for the platform to fall.
She hung herself.
She hung herself. That's one nasty bitch on the way out.
I kind of respect her moxie in a way, almost, but I mean, I kind of do. I mean, it's like, wow, like to have the balls, like literally to have the balls to do that. Like it's just, and as a woman, especially back then, like, wow, like, I mean,
yeah.
Do you know how they got caught? Because that's what I'm kind of curious how they got caught.
What happened was that the guy that got drugged said, "I don't feel good." And he fell asleep in his chair, not the bed.
And then he saw the bed
drop out. And then he realized, oh, God, something's wrong. And he climbed out the window and ran a few miles into town in the middle of the night, shaking off, barefoot and running in the dark. And he told them what happened. he told the authorities in this town. They went back to the inn and they caught the two of them. And then they realized they found obviously enough ample evidence to convict both of them of multiple murders in their own little happy inn.
I swear, if that isn't a movie yet, they need to make it one.
Oh, just horrible. And what a period of
Somebody
peace.
will.
That really would make a hell of a movie, so to speak.
I honestly have to look into it now because I feel like they had to have made a movie about it. I mean, crap. If Norman Bates did that stuff, he wouldn't have got caught so easy.
The bed dropped, and this is fairly popular. We heard it on our tour. We read about it. The bed would drop, and the guy would kill anyone who. I mean, imagine I wouldn't want to imagine it too much. Imagine falling, having your bed fall away, and you've been drugged, and you're kind of injured falling, and then this guy jumps up and stabs you to death. I mean, what kind of chance could you legitimately have against a situation like that?
None. You would have no chance, especially if you're drugged. I mean, forget it. I mean, back then, especially nowadays. I mean, yeah, maybe people would be a little more. People listen to enough true crime podcasts to know how to get out of certain situations, but still, you wouldn't get away that easy.
The prison actually had some activity when we
Oh,
went,
yeah.
because the parking lot is where the gallows were.
Yeah.
And so I brought my instruments with me, and they were just going ballistic.
And this was in the middle of a dirt parking lot.
Yeah, it's a dirt parking
next
lot.
to a building that it was,
And I asked the tour guide, I go, was there something here? Was there a building or was something? Oh, this is where the gallows
This is
used to
where
be.
the gallows stood. You're standing right on the spot.
And then we got stuff inside the prison, which they just recently renovated. They give tours and they renovate it because it's crumbling. It's like falling apart. And we went into where her cell was, and you could just feel her presence. And I actually I remember I felt like this cool breeze go by my face. And then I felt like someone just tapped me on the nose like that. And Mark was picking up a bunch of stuff too.
In addition to her lovely energy, there was a jailer who was renowned for his brutality in beating people up, a very large guy that administered justice, so to speak, or torture with a club. And so I saw this big dark energy, and I forget his name, but it was not an unusual name, but it's like there's a guy begins the name, I don't know if it was Jim, so not Jeremy. His name was not Jeremy. Just so we're clear.
You described it, and then the tour guide said, "Oh yeah, that's Big Jim, somebody around."
Yeah, that's Big Jim.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, kind of Green Mile-ish or Shawshank-ish, but I mean, they had to get inspiration from somewhere. But there's a history of guards that like to be a little aggressive with prisoners. There's a history of that, especially back then. But
nobody cared. No one was going to follow up.
Yeah.
You know.
Why would they back then? They had a lot more to worry about than that. But wow. But did I hear you say Queen Mary earlier? That you investigated the Queen Mary? That's a location I freaking know because every paranormal investigator group I know, I sold tickets to that one time or another to go on it.
Well, we've had some very good experiences.
That's like going home. We love going to the Queen Mary. We've had so many experiences. But one of the most memorable was when we did the crossing over of the prisoners.
Yes.
They at the time they would allow you down to, I think we went down 5 or 6 flights of stairs to the very bottom, which was the cargo hold. And that's where they had the prisoners. I think they were German and Italian prisoners. Mm-hmm. And they would, transport them across the Atlantic to New York, and that's where
prisoners of war.
Yeah, prisoners of war. So we went down with our group, and another friend of ours, Patrick Burns, was there, and Mark and Patrick conducted a crossing over because we were trying to get some of them to go home. They were stuck there for decades. And it's like we were trying to get them to go to their family or, just be at peace. And so that was another emotional moment where a lot of people were teary-eyed. You can tell this story.
Well, what happened was that just to make sure that there was no electronic interference from other equipment, technologies, Patrick put an EMF meter at a good distance from us, but not so far that we couldn't see the light register, blink.
Yeah.
And so we told the spirit, I'm speaking him through it, that you don't have to stay here. Do you understand that? Blink, blink. Can you see your other voices? Can you hear other voices calling you to the light? Blink, blink. Do you see your? I mean, I'm hearing this. I feel like no, it's his parents. His parents are calling him to the light. So my message to him was: there's forgiveness in the light. There's reconciliation. Go to the light. Don't be afraid of it. Don't be an earthbound spirit. There's no significant purpose in it. And so this guy kept responding, yes, no, go, and then go to the light, and then all of the communication stopped. And it was very clear that he had, to us,
well, we had like about 10 K2 meters, and just for your audience, a K2 meter measures the electromagnetic energy from whatever spirit is around. It picks up on that and then sets off these series of lights. The cooler lights, the green, are like a low energy, but when it goes to the red, then that's a higher energy. So all the lights were blinking in the red the whole time they were doing this crossing over. And as soon as it's almost like you felt a door shut, and then every one of our instruments just went out, like they were, and we're all looking at each other like, because it was simultaneous. They all went out at the same time, and you just felt in the space this like release. I don't know how to describe it, but it felt like a release. And you got teary-eyed, like, oh my God, they've passed on, they've crossed over, so.
Do you have time for us to tell you one more kind of somewhat more?
Oh yeah, we got plenty of time.
Okay, Barb and I were called to investigate a landmark hotel in the Beverly Hills area undergoing construction.
Or Bel Air.
And so we were asked to come by the head of security and the general manager of the hotel. The hotel had been shut down for about 2 years as they fixed the rooms, updated everything. The reason why, there was a couple of reasons. Apparently, there were ghosts or people in spirit getting in the way of construction. Guys would be working on the job. Their power tools would be unplugged back when everything was a battery. So the doors would be locked. You'd walk out of the room for a reason, and the electronic door locks would lock behind you. So people were getting locked out of rooms. Tools were being stopped working. And then they saw on another event, they saw a little girl running around in a courtyard or by a sidewalk.
Yeah, she was hiding. She would be in the bushes in a courtyard, and then she would come out full figure. The gardeners would see her as this little girl dressed in kind of period clothing, and they would go toward her to, wonder, like, what are you doing here? And then she would just like disappear into the bushes.
Well, finally, some of the men in black security saw them. This is where the head of security said, we have to do something different. They sent one of their security guards over on their closed circuit TV. The guy approaches the little girl. She looks up at them and just disappears. And they realized, oh, we're out of our element. We don't know how to deal with this. This ain't our part of our job description. So they called us. Barbara had, and other people with the EMF meters. I sensed there was a little girl there who had died on the property. And again, there was probably like a dozen people with us, something like that.
At least.
Because they had family members, people in the security team, general managers, staff, and myself, Barbara, and like one or two other administrators. And so we had a number of pieces of equipment going. I basically said, the little girl that your mom and dad are waiting on the other side, you don't have to stay here. You can go back and be with them if you'd like. And so we're getting very distinct and powerful. Yes, I hear them. I'm going to go to them. Do you see the light? Yes. Blink, blink. Yes. Blink, blink. Okay, go to the light. And then is fat. And it's very rapid fire. Do you see them? Blink, blink. Do you hear them? Bing, go to the light. Blink, blink. Okay, I will. And then all of the communication on multiple equipment, all the lights turned off.
Everything stopped. The cameras stopped.
And it was like
everything like went dead.
and I have to admit, it got me a little emotional because she was very forward and clear, and all these other people sensed there was something very deep and emotional happening at a spiritual level.
And it turns out that they used to have horseback riding on the property, and she was the daughter of the caretaker of the horses, and he got her a little pony to ride, and she fell off and broke her neck on the property.
Died very suddenly. So that's what we saw. That's what we heard. But that was a very emotional, cathartic moment, where people realized, okay, this is not just Mark and Barb, picking up a few little things. And they corroborated all the historical,
after Mark had told the story, they corroborated, this little girl did exist, and she was the daughter of the stable person who took care of the horses. So
Barb and I also try to think of the people who are our clients. We also include people in spirit as our clients in most cases.
Which is a very honorable thing to do, because a lot of investigators are just out there they're not trying to help the spirits. I mean, they'll help them. I know a lot of them that help them cross over. I mean, that exists. I know it does for a lot of different mediums, but
we don't try. We don't provoke them. They actually, when Mark and I are together, it's almost like they see us as a window that they can come and, voice whatever they have to say, whatever message. It's like, we don't sit there and like beat drums and make things happen. They just kind of are, I don't know, magnetized to us, or they come to us. Sure. And we try to help them. That's our main goal, is what can we do to help you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Makes sense. Because I mean, fate works in weird ways. And if that's your purpose on this planet, by whatever gives you that purpose, then of course they're going to be drawn to you, because they know it's what you're there to do. Spirits definitely know more what's going on in this world than we do, for Lord's sake. I mean, come on, they have to. I mean, there has to be some benefit to being a spirit on Earth. There has to be some benefit.
I think a lot of them know who's sensitive and those who are not. One last thing too is that we try to be conscious of, are we dealing with an angry, negative spirit that could harm us? Or is this a victim? And so if someone is a victim, I will challenge them. I will push them back. And we do clear homes for people. We make that attempt sometimes, and it can take more than one time, because I mean, I'm not a licensed exorcist by any stretch, but we're raised Catholic. We tend to use Catholic symbolism and messages. It doesn't mean that people, whatever your faith is, that you can't use something that symbolizes, God, light, love to you, and to do this. And so, but they seem to. Barbara had an experience where she read the prayer of Michael the Archangel in Greek.
We went to this one private home in Thousand Oaks, was it?
I think so, yeah, out that way.
And I guess the couple, they were having issues with some pretty, I don't know if they were
Not demonic,
but they were like nefarious, of bothering them. And so this, for the first time, I said, I just want to try the prayer to Saint Michael the Archangel, to say it in Latin. And I had it in a book. And so as we were doing our session and trying to communicate with these negative energies, I started reading the prayer, and immediately all the instrumentation were going to the red, and it was just like,
don't like
ballistic. This. And Mark kept saying, keep reading.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh my God, whatever, we stirred something up, because they did not like it. And eventually we were hoping that was something that would send them away. I think maybe we heard back from them one more one other time, but
Yeah.
I think we pretty much got rid of most of the bad stuff. But
They also don't like holy water.
yeah,
because I've literally been on camera, like having all of these reactions around us, and how we can validate that is that we seldom work in an environment with one electrical device, one measuring device. There's multiple different things measuring different the energy in different ways. But there was this one point when I reached for the holy water, and everything stopped. And they're like, and did you just see that? I saw that. Did you see that? I saw that. Where people, these spirit beings, did not like me throwing holy water around. It seemed to be an irritant at minimum.
Yeah.
Which I mean,
yeah,
it's ironic you guys brought that up, even because I was going to ask you as kind of like a last questions type thing, if you actually ever had any encounters with demons or angels, if that word people
not
want to
so
call it.
much demons, but definitely very, very negative
Yes.
energies that are very powerful. And so you cannot at the Black Dahlia house, we actually forgot to do our protection. We always start out a session with some type of a prayer protection, and we didn't do it at that house. And that was the one time that he actually followed us home.
And we, at the end of when we went home, again, Barbara and I have been married a long time. Every couple has fights. But we got into a real screamer.
I thought Mark was possessed.
This is out of character for us. And it's like,
it was bad.
We don't normally fight. And then where were we what was the location? We were at the home of a serial killer.
Yeah.
Investigating evil, dark spirits.
And they asked us to come back a second time. And that's the only place I told Mark, I go, I don't want to go back there. Yeah. I did not want to go back there. But we did. And we actually, I'm glad we did, because we really fought him.
Yeah.
Because he actually, his energy, I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I would I'd still be in a sleep state, but I would see him at the foot of our bed, and he was just staring at us. And then he was trying to make us fight. And, it was just really bizarre. And until we finally realized, this is what's going on. He's trying to break us up.
And also too, this, we've all seen the movies where they're possessed, where people are possessed, in spirit and body, they lose their minds, their head spins around.
This was oppression.
There's the next oppression. Oppression is the next lighter step, where they will try to oppress you, cause you to misbehave, do things erratically, hurt someone. And so that I think we've experienced. I know we have.
So we did a lot of saging, a lot of prayer, but we had to be vigilant. We could not let our guard down, or we would have gone on to the next step, which I
mean, maybe I'm agnostic by trade, so I don't particularly believe in any one religion more than the other. I'm spiritual, so I believe there's something out there. Just don't know what to call it. But to me, maybe I'm just thinking, maybe that's what demons technically really are. It's just negative spirits that are left on Earth.
It's a negative.
Oh, it is.
It's an energy. There's light and dark. There's light and dark energy.
Of course. It's just what I'm more trying to say is it's not the whole scaly creatures that pop culture has made us think they are, or that ancient art has made us think they are.
They tend to be attractive. They want to lure you in.
Oh yeah.
They'll take advantage of you when you're at a weak point.
Hodel, that was
Dr. Dr. Hodel.
Dr. George.
He was well dressed, rich.
Very, very fastidious.
Fastidious, for sure.
We both saw him very fastidiously dressed and neat, but boy. Anyway, that was an experience. So we got out of that after about 3 months.
Just one last word from us on this. Anyone that's getting into this, regardless of your spiritual situation, whatever you believe, try to surround yourself. I surround myself in the white light of
Right.
love and divine protection. We will allow only positive energy to influence us. We will not allow the negativity of others to affect us in any way. That's a non-denominational cover yourself, protect yourself, and try to visualize yourself protected, because they'll take advantage of your
weaknesses,
or your lack
your
of
fear.
protection.
They feed off your fear.
And this is why I don't do paranormal investigations, folks. Just saying. But just saying, there's a reason I don't go to do it myself, because I like to hear about it and have people talk about their experiences. I don't. Someday, maybe I'd have to be with someone who I know could protect me with.
I feel safe to be with Mark,
and vice versa.
You know, and on most of our investigation, a lot of people hang out around Mark because he can actually hear what they're saying. He can communicate. So it's like, should we get out of here? Is this a dangerous spot? Or
well, we'll also just know that, okay, maybe they're not going to play. These aren't trained dolphins. These are spirit beings.
Right.
They come and go when they want. They don't want to
Right.
interact. They don't have to.
Right.
They want to hassle you. They will.
Right.
So
Right.
you got to be conscious of the fact that we're dealing with people who are they're spirit beings, and they have free will, and they can do what they want up to an extent.
Right.
Exactly, people. Don't be like the people in Deep Blue Sea and think you could train sharks. Come on now.
No.
No. I mean, it's just you're asking for trouble if you try to train something that can't be trained. Which
they don't want to be trained.
A spirit can be a predator if it wants to be. I mean, it can be. Of course, it could. There's evil that exists always.
Mm-hmm.
But the last thing I'll ask you before we wrap up is, have you come across shadow people?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. They do exist. It's a real phenomenon.
Oh, I don't doubt they exist at all. I know people who've had experiences, but what do you think they are? Like, that's the question I like to ask.
That's a great question.
The Hollywood Roosevelt.
Well, actually, I'll talk about the guy that was at my mother's house. That my mom built, had a home that she was renovating, was probably 50 years old, 40 years old.
More than that.
Yeah, it was an older home in the LA area, which is unusual.
Yeah.
And a friend came to visit, and they saw a man in like a short dark top hat. And he's been described before as having, like, we're seeing a guy, and
he goes by a hallway.
And he'll walk in your line of sight. And so
you'll see him out of the side of your eye.
And it had a couple of people say, we saw that. We saw him. You didn't tell us your house was haunted. I didn't know my house was haunted. We saw someone, and we walked out, and we could only see in the mirror. So what are those beings? There are all levels in my mind of fallen angels. Demons, to my thinking, were never human. They're not human. There are people who are spirit beings. I also believe that there's elementals. I believe that there are that could be like nature spirits. I also believe they're interdimensionals. Some people may say that those are really just people from other dimensions or universes.
I've heard that theory. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I can't argue with it because it seems to fit, really too well in terms of description, in terms of how they act. So they're out there. I would say if you have a sense of something being there, whatever, however you protect yourself spiritually, be it a line of salt on the ground, follow through with the intention of it, the idea that you're protected. If you're doing this on a wing and a prayer, and gee, I hope this helps, it doesn't help. You have to have faith in the things you do. Otherwise, they just know it, and they'll walk over any protection you have unless you really put some faith in it. Otherwise, you're toast.
It's all exactly. It's all belief. It really is all belief. And I mean, I work with a previous guest of the show on a biweekly basis, a Reiki master, and something I never would have thought was possible until the last 6 months. But energy work is real. Like I felt it firsthand that it works, and it's amazing that like it completely made me more spiritual than I ever could have imagined myself being, because I finally found the proof I was looking for. I mean, that's part of the reason I'm not religious is lack of proof. Which I'm like you, Barb. I like to look at things from scientific methods, and like it's just I don't know. There's as a paranormal podcaster, I get more questions than answers every freaking time I do an interview. So
We understand that for a fact. We do.
Yeah, I mean, and shout out people. Yeah, I mean, that ultra terrestrial theory that they come from other dimensions. It makes sense. It honestly does. I have my own personal theory that they're kind of evolved ghosts, like they're evolved spirits that like they've been around long enough that they learned how to change their form to look more human.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the one you described almost reminds me of like the Hatman phenomenon that's been going on for the last 20 years, like in popularity, but it's been going on a lot longer than that, really. But people just they talk.
Yeah, but he describes a shadow person to me, but
yeah, I mean, the Hatman is a shadow person or a spirit. I mean, it can go both ways, from what I've been told. But basically, the Hatman's just a particular shadow entity that always looks like that with the top hat and everything, and it's unexplainable. It's really unexplainable. But I want to thank the Paranormals for coming on because it's been an amazing show. I honestly can go for another hour if I had the chance. But
thank you.
But actually, I saw a comment on another podcast you guys were on where someone like commented on the YouTube video, like, do they have their own YouTube show? Because they should.
Well, funny that you say that, young man. We are considering doing that. I mean, we kind of backed into the Paranelsons for real. We're Paranelsons and we're the Paranelsons. So why not? We're not your old-fashioned Ozzie and Harriet by any stretch. We're kind of very different.
Honestly, if you guys did a YouTube show of each episode about a different case you've done or something like that, like it would get views. Like, oh, I could introduce you to people that would put it in their network and everything. Like it'd be something.
Actually, I appreciate that. Maybe can we pick your brain for a few minutes after the broadcast? Also,
of course,
if people want to find me, I'm at marknelsonmedium.com. marknelsonmedium.com. That's my site. I do readings for people. I also I'll do I officiate weddings, but I do paranormal investigating because it's just a fascinating service. We don't we don't charge for that. And if you want to reach me or Barbara, you can also go through that. And we're also working on our site, Paranelsons.
We also are on Instagram, Paranelsons on Instagram. And we post, our current, what we're doing, just some of our investigations. So that's a good place to start. But we are putting together a website so that people can see where events are that we're at.
And all of that.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. I was literally about to ask whether people can find you, and you went right ahead and did it for me. I love it. It saves me time.
Our pleasure.
And of course, all my listeners, you know where you can find me. If you don't know, you're new, listen to the outro. You'll find out. Or just search Paranormal Normal on Google, because I swear to God, I have like 5 Google pages when it comes up. Like it's just a lot of episodes and a lot of different guest appearances. But I want to thank Mark and Bob for coming on. This has been an amazing comeback show for me, and I love it. I absolutely love it. And till next time, I have an interview next week lined up, guys. I got to reschedule a lot of the interviews that got missed in the last month, so they're coming back. And if you're watching this in replay in the next few days, be sure to check out the podcast stream for a little announcement coming up with everything all the specials that will be coming up, because I had a lot of time over the last month to work on things I usually don't get time to work on. So come check it out. And until next time, hope you enjoyed the show, and like and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can find me on Facebook as Jeremy Bryant, or you can find me as Uncensored, Unapologetic, and Untamed UQ Podcast Collective Facebook group. You can find me on Twitter and the Instagram as @JuggaloBastard, or should I say X now. And you can find me on TikTok as @JuggaloBastard Podcast. You can also find me on YouTube as Paranormal the New Normal. And you can also find me streaming on YouTube as Blind Knowledge Network, because all knowledge is blind until they admit Bigfoot exists.